Hi everybody, how's it going? So Mercury, the planet currently in retrograde, stations direct on Friday the 15th of September. For us in the UK, it's going to happen at 21:22. Very interesting because the last minute, therefore, that Mercury is retrograde is 21:21. And that matches the degrees of what the moon and the sun are going to be on the new moon in Virgo, which is happening less than 19 hours before that. So very much powerful, profound energy around this new moon with the emotions and feelings of the moon, okay, in terms of our intention settings and our manifestations, and the soul essence that the sun brings in Virgo, because they're both going to be in Virgo, of course. So cleaning things up, getting things in order. And of course, Mercury going direct means that the period of retrograde where we've had to introspect, that's been the moment for us to have a truth talk with ourselves, communication, Mercury, a truth talk about what does need to be cleaned up. So it's very much connected, certainly in terms of the numerology, how I'm looking at it, because of course I know it's the degrees of the sun and the moon, and it's the time for the UK, so it's not applicable to everybody, I appreciate that, but the time being the same degrees, you know, of the last moment of Mercury being retrograde. And then 21:22 for the UK, stations direct. Yes, we have got a post shadow phase for a couple of weeks, but the energy should then begin to flow, okay? And it's also coming out of a retrograde, it is that sort of new beginning, and a new moon that we would have just had would also be a new beginning and symbolizes that with the lunar energy. So I feel intuitively it's very powerful for our manifestations in terms of what we're trying to clean up, what we're trying to get in order in our lives, and also that we're communicating that to ourselves. We know exactly what it is we need to clean up. Our souls know. But have we communicated that to ourselves truthfully? Because that often means detaching from something else, something that's no longer serving us, but perhaps feels like a bit of a false comfort blanket because it's familiar. And those kind of truth talks with ourselves can be intense. Take it from somebody who knows that it can be intense. And this Mercury retrograde, especially with it happening in Virgo, okay, so that is one of the signs Mercury rules, of course. So this is all about that truth talk about where we've got to clean things up and get things in order. We also want to feel in control of things. So if we know we've got to get something in order, we want to feel in control of that thing, that situation, that connection, whatever it might be. But detaching from it can make us feel out of control. So it can be intense for that reason. So we'll pull up the chart and let's see. And I've also got some card decks here just to take some extra messages. Okay, but without further ado, let's get the chart up. And in terms of the actual event of Mercury stationing direct, here we go. 21:22, that's for a British Standard Time. Apply your own time zones as appropriate. See, Mercury retrograde is still working its magic. And I say British Standard Time, it's British Standard Time -1 because of the time zone we're in. But anyway, there we go. I won't labour on that too much. Now, as always, you can see the colourful lines that I've drawn. And we have down here Mercury. Okay, so the yellow arrow, Mercury down here in Virgo. So yes, when Mercury is direct, the moon is no longer in Virgo. The moon is then in Libra. So Mercury will go direct. Lilith is right there, bringing up any shadow aspects of fears or anxieties or doubts as well that we might have had relating to that truth talk, to make absolutely sure we know what we're doing and we know what we want to get in order. But the sun is there in Virgo. So that's powerful energy of the cosmos supporting us from a soul essence perspective. The moon has transited into Libra at that point. So, you know, within that space of time from the new moon up until this point, the moon has changed signs. So this is all about fairness, reciprocity, equal give and take. Within our emotions, we want to feel like things are fair. We want to bring balance back into our lives. This is why we need to clean things up. So this is perfect energy to work with in that respect. And we do have some trines going on here, and there's many aspects going on, but these are the ones I was particularly drawn to. Okay. And certainly in terms of the sun that I mentioned, that soul essence of the cosmos there supporting us, there's a trine going to Pluto. So very much that, yes, that introspection and other introspection that we've gone through. Remember Venus not long ago? Where are we investing our resources, our time, energy, love, money, attention? That's valuable to us. Where are we investing it? In things, in places, in people that make our heart happy and give us that Venus energy, or in situations, connections, etc., that don't? Where do we need to maybe put boundaries up, or where do we need to take boundaries down because we want to invest more in situations that make us happy and less in situations that don't? So that was one of the retrograde phases where we've had to introspect specifically with regards to love and resources, okay, and investments in relation to that. What do we love? What do we want to do? Are we investing enough of our resources in that? So it's getting us in check. It's getting us back into balance in that respect. So it very much ties in with this. But yes, the soul essence, even when we think of our soul, you know, this is giving us a lot of answers, but our soul is providing these answers via our intuition, because we know at a soul level what it is that does make us happy. And that's where the truth talk comes in from the Mercury retrograde, because we've got to face this. It's almost like, okay, I love doing that. I'm not investing enough of my time in that. And that's what I've got to clean up in my life. Could be simple as that. But then making that change to invest more time in that area, whatever it might be, could mean that you need to devote less time to other things. And that's where we get that detachment, and that's where it can become challenging. But ultimately, if we're following our soul's truth, we're following the sacred flame energy of Vesta in terms of what sparks that fire within, that flame within, it's going to bring us that Venus energy back, because we're going to feel that fulfillment, that emotional fulfillment from doing what we want to do. It kind of makes sense, doesn't it, in that respect? But the 3D reality that we live in can overcomplicate situations, because perhaps we don't feel like we can invest any more time into the things or the people that we want to, for a number of reasons. And it's those reasons that need to be cleaned up, need to be sorted out, whatever it might be. But patterns are coming up to the surface, and this is what's causing a lot of karmic stuff to, you know, come up for cleansing, for releasing, and it's all part of this transformation. So the point I was going to get at there with the sun and the trine to Pluto is that everything that's going on within the soul is assisting the deep transformation, and vice versa, because we're being called to really look at our structures within, in terms of the Capricorn energy that Pluto is in, trudging deep into the soul, what needs to be transformed. And it's bringing up a lot of truth to the surface from the depths of our soul, and that can be uncomfortable to receive. Again, Mercury retrograde, truth talk, Mercury in Virgo, supporting the Virgo energy of cleaning things up. But it's not to say it's easy. Okay, the trine is showing us that it's working for us. It's harmonious. It's a harmonious aspect in astrology. So when we know from the soul what it is we want to do, what it is we need to clean up, that's going to naturally help the transformation that Pluto is calling for. Okay, and then we have here, over here, we've got Chiron in Aries. Okay, so this is our healing journey. And Chiron being in Aries, that's all about the sovereign self. Okay, so we've been on this healing journey for a while, and there is a beautiful trine going down to Venus and Juno, who are conjunct. So they're 1 degree away from each other. It's not an exact conjunction, but they're close enough, and they're in Leo. So this beautiful trine is showing us that we're nurturing ourselves through our healing journey as part of this. Because again, when we know what we need to clean up in our lives, whatever it might be, and that's getting us more into alignment with our spiritual truth, also making Saturn happy, this is also part of our healing journey, because we're healing wounds perhaps that have been highlighted to us, of maybe things coming up deep-rooted fears, anxieties, or, you know, stuff from the past or past lives as to why we as a soul have felt we can't pursue what we want to pursue. We can't possibly invest time into that. You love it, you want to invest more time, what, you're crazy? When actually that's what we need to be doing, because that brings us that joy. We get that reflected back to us. We feel it inside our internal condition. We feel it. It's reflected back to us in our external reality. But the patterning, the conditioning, fears, everything around that could be coming up. So it is part of the healing journey. And we've got divine feminine energy, Venus and Juno, nurturing us through the healing journey. And they're both in Leo, and that's all about that expression of self and being seen for who we are. The Venus energy, you know, being seen for the love that we want to receive as well as give. And that comes from that joy and that fulfillment that we receive from doing what we enjoy, what we want to do, loving on ourselves enough to allow that to happen. So that's, of course, going to contribute to the healing journey, because we're getting more in alignment with our soul's truth, our emotional truth, and our happiness. Okay. The other trine, which is the triangle that you can see, so it's many lines, but this one actually makes the complete triangle. There's other ones going on, as I said. It is quite busy there with some of the alignments, but these are the ones that I was particularly drawn to. Okay, so we've got Saturn in Pisces, retrograde, serving up lessons, serving up karma, getting us in line with our spiritual truth. In trine to Ceres and the South Node. So where there is expansion of karmic situations, okay, we're learning the lessons that Saturn is delivering. So it's helping us, even if it doesn't feel like it. But the South Node is in Libra. So we want to have that balance in our foundations. And that's what these lessons are helping us restore or recreate. And there's also this trine, of course, going across to Vesta, and Vesta is trine to Saturn, because when we know what sparks that sacred flame within, we're understanding what doesn't. So therefore, we are also ticking the box when it comes to the Saturnian lessons of getting in alignment with our spiritual truth, because we're following our soul's truth. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? You know, why would we not follow our soul's truth? But again, 3D reality and everything that goes with it, influences, etc., it can just create challenges for us. So this energy is actually working for us in a beautiful way. Now, there is an opposition energy to Mercury and Lilith with Saturn. So, you know, we've got the Virgo Pisces energy going on. There's push-pull type energy with an opposition. But again, we can use it to our advantage if we're aware of it. Because yes, fears and doubts coming up about what we need to clean up, but are we good enough to do that? Do we really want to do it? And making sure that we're strong enough to have that truth talk with ourselves and then express it with that mercurial energy. And that can be challenging, the lessons sometimes, because if it's a particularly difficult lesson that we're having to overcome with all of this, this is where the detachment from situations or people or thought patterns that we've had, like, you know, the majority of our life can be difficult to overcome. So it just brings an extra challenge there, but it's all to serve us, because we've had this time whilst Mercury was retrograde to try and reflect, reset, reassess. You know, it's actually deep reflection on where we need to communicate with ourselves and other people potentially about what's got to be sorted out, what needs to be put into order. Virgo energy. That can be uncomfortable, can't it? So that's why it's going to potentially cause a bit of a challenging energy if it's resonating. Not in all cases, but it's just showing that you've got that face-off there astrologically going on. And the Saturn energy is intense enough, especially with Pluto as well, and what Uranus is calling for. It's a massive period of change. So it's deep transformation, and that can be heavy. Talking about Uranus, so there is a sextile between Uranus, you can see here, in Taurus. So Uranus is at home in Taurus, but also retrograde. So we're having to reflect on change. And this is in accordance with our worth and values. So again, that can be quite deep. And there's a sextile to Neptune. And there is also a sextile from Neptune across to Pluto. So the ethereal essence of Neptune, because Neptune rules Pisces, is certainly that magical, mystical, intuitive energy. And it's very much heightened in Pisces. And, you know, it's also a way of being able to understand, intuit, perceive what might be coming before it's even come. It's that psychic, you know, connection. When we look at planets, of course, we look at the light and the shadow side because that's life, that's a reality. So, of course, the shadow side would be deception, illusion, confusion, and all of that. But we've got sextiles going on here. So these are positive aspects. So when we look at Uranus in Taurus, what needs to change in accordance with our worth and values? And Neptune's allowing the spiritual soul essence to come through to intuit what that might be. And equally, what needs to transform, Mercury, woo, can't wait till you go direct, mate. Trust me on that one. So yeah, Neptune sextile to Pluto, again, is intuiting on a spiritual level what needs to transform deeply. So yes, Neptune is there in sextile to both Pluto and Uranus, calling for deep structural transformation within our lives and change in accordance with worth and values. So it's a positive aspect. So we can use that energy to work for us. And especially recognizing that beforehand we would have had the new moon. So this is all about intention settings and manifestations. So if we know, because we've had the truth talk with ourselves about what we've got to clean up, we're going to know what needs to change and what needs to transform. So we're already intuiting that from the very action of setting intentions and the reflection that's gone into that beforehand. So we're doing this work on this healing journey of transformation, and the energy is working for us to allow us to then make those changes where we need to. Okay. I will point out the square that's going on, which is this red line, and apologies because of course these lines cross over one another, so it looks a bit messy there, but I wanted to point this one out. So Jupiter is actually in square to Venus and Juno. So although there is that trine from them to Chiron, it is part of the healing journey. The challenge can come where we might feel if there's a bit of lack of hope or restriction. Jupiter's in retrograde, so this is all about inner expansion, which is also part of our healing journey, because we want to grow, you know, internally in order for us to then be that true self and express that. So this is kind of the inner work that's going on as part of this transformation. And Jupiter is expansive energy, of course, worth and values. So nurturing ourselves through, but perhaps if there's been a lack of hope, because Jupiter can represent hope as well, or lack of expansion in certain areas when it comes to our worth and values, it might just be that this is where this extra bit of nurturing is needed, because it can be quite challenging with that coming up, especially because Uranus is saying, right, what needs to change? What's your worth? And if we don't feel worthy of this change, then Jupiter might expand that so that we're feeling more on the kind of shadow side, and we need to move onto the light side of things in order to really engage with that energy to expand in a hopeful way that, yes, I've recognized from this introspection, this is no longer in accordance with my worth and values. And I'm going to nurture myself through this change because I want to invest my time, my resources, my energy, Venus, into what I love to do. And I'm going to allow the hope and the expansion of that to come forth and enable that change for me, because I'm worth it and it's aligning with my values. So that's what the energy is saying to me in relation to that. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to now pull up the chart against the UK. Okay. So UK's natal chart is the inner chart, and the outer one is Mercury station in direct, 21-22 for us in the UK, but apply your own time zones as appropriate. So all those lines you've just seen, I've added them here, okay? And basically, this is just to give some context in relation to a natal chart. So when we would look at our own natal charts, and we do this, it looks at that relationship between the transits of the day, of the time, against our chart, and it can give indication of, you know, where the challenging energy might be, where the energy can influence us in a positive way, and how it might be affecting us. Okay, so many different things that are looked at. This is just an overview of it, but you know, you can see the lines on here. So actually what we've got is we've got the third house is where Mercury is going to be stationed in direct. Okay, so quite close to the cusp there. But the third house, that is communication and expression. So Mercury is all about that. And this is actually Gemini's home, traditionally in astrology. So the third house, expression, communication, and also travel. But in view of what we're going on about, you know, this is about the truth talk with ourselves. And then it's really heightening the energy of needing to express that, even if it is just to ourselves. This is where the sun also is. So the soul essence energy is, of course, heightening that. And the moon is here. So although the moon is in that different sign, as I mentioned at this point, they're still in the third house. So the feelings around how we might express things to make sure it's fair, Libra energy. And the soul saying, this has got to be cleaned up. And how do I express it? Third house. Okay, so that's where that's happening. And between the sun and Pluto, so as I said, you know, once we establish what it is that needs to be cleaned up, that's going to enable the deep transformation that's being called for. Well, that's in trine to Pluto over in the 6th house. So again, it's working harmoniously in terms of where things need to change in our daily routines and schedules. Because when we know what needs to be cleaned up, metaphorically speaking, and what needs to be put in order, perhaps our schedules are going to have to change, because we want to make that change for ourselves. We want to invest in certain things that we want to be doing, and maybe that's going to disrupt our current daily schedules and routines. It's also the Virgo house. The 6th house is the Virgo ruled house. So the essence of the Virgo energy is very much here in this respect, but it's working for us. And we know that for this particular chart, you know, it's Capricorn energy that's going on. So that can be quite harsh energy. But in terms of us being of service to others, there's also a key factor there as well, because when we know what needs to clean up and get things in order, perhaps that relates to how we are of service with others. Maybe we're investing too much time being of service to a certain number of people, or one person, or, you know, group of people, whatever it might be, whereas we need to actually pull focus back and invest in someone else. So, you know, it's kind of like, where are we of service to others, and how is this also impacting our well-being? Because it's the house of health and well-being. And if we clean things up so that they're in alignment with our soul's truth, and we're being truthful to ourselves in terms of expressing that to ourselves, so we know fully in the soul, our soul knows, trust me on that one. But then communicating that to ourselves to actually do something about it is the challenge. So our soul knows, we communicate with ourselves, and then it's enabling the transformation and how that's going to work in that respect. And that can be tricky sometimes, but the trine is there, so it's harmonious. So we can use the energy to work for us and with us. And we want to restore balance. We want to feel the moon balanced, that things are fair. So we don't want to be investing in situations that are not fair or reciprocal, do we? Maybe that's something that has to be cleaned up here. And the other trine that I mentioned with Chiron and Venus and Juno is going from the 10th house to the 1st house. So interestingly, Venus and Juno are in the 1st house when it comes to the UK for the self. It's all about the self. And we've got the love energy and the divine feminine energy in the house of the self. So we need to nurture ourselves. Simple as that. And it is about investing, you know, our resources in certain things, places, people, connections, jobs, whatever it is. This is where now, you know, it's going to help our healing journey of our inner authority, because Chiron is in the 10th house. And Chiron is actually conjunct the UK's sun, so the UK's soul essence. So it's very much a prominent part of the healing journey of the collective. And, you know, we want to ensure that we are investing in the right places and situations and people, so that we, as ourselves, first house, feel emotionally fulfilled. So the divine feminine energy there is nurturing us through that. But that square, remember, is going across to Jupiter, which is in the 11th house. So this is the house of connections with others. So maybe we want to invest as a person, as a self, we want to invest in a group of people or a person, 11th house, connections with others, but we feel that there's lack of hope when it comes to our worth and values. That would be a good explanation of why there's a square there between Venus and Juno in the 1st, across to Jupiter in Taurus in the 11th. Maybe there is connection with another or others where they don't align with your worth and values anymore. So the challenge might be in recognizing that and allowing that Venus energy of, right, okay, well, I'm not going to invest any more of my resources into that particular connection because there's no hope in it, there's lack of expansion, and it doesn't align with my worth and values. There could be a connection there with someone or a group of people perfectly aligned with worth and values. And the challenge is accepting that when it comes to the self, because of the self-love that's needed to allow oneself to feel worthy of receiving that when it comes to worth and values. Yeah. So number of different things here, but this is how the energy can play out because of the planetary alignments and the planets that are involved. Uranus is in the 11th house as well. So that is where change has been called for, certainly in terms of this chart. And the sextile to Neptune in the 9th. And then from Neptune, there's that sextile across to Pluto in the 6th. So when it comes to that spiritual essence of our intuition, giving us that guidance in terms of what needs to change, that's happening in the 9th house. So that's about learning and discovery. So maybe through all of this healing journey and the retrogrades and that introspection, it's actually enabled our intuition to grow. And we are discovering more about what that means. And as we're discovering more, we're becoming more in touch with our spiritual self as a result. But as we're learning more, we understand more about what is in alignment with our worth and values. And we're understanding more about what does need to transform, because we're more intuitive about our situation. We've learnt more, we've discovered more, we've gone on a journey to be quite deep, but it is a spiritual journey. So that's now paying off because it's enabling us to understand what needs to change and what needs to transform. And all of those planets are retrograde. So it's a very introspective energy with all of that. Yeah, so that's powerful in my view. But then I am a Neptunian, so I would probably say that. Okay, let's have a look at the other trine that I spoke about. So Saturn across to Vesta and down to the South Node. Now we know the South Node and Ceres are in the 4th house of foundations. So yes, we want our foundations to be fair and balanced. So we're trying to build or restore a foundation because we've had to kind of clear a lot of karma, and we want to build this foundation for ourselves that is fair. Now, Ceres is at this point 0 degrees Scorpio, so has actually moved. There's still a conjunction there, but has moved into Scorpio. So there is depth here to the expansion that Ceres can offer the South Node when it comes to karmic stuff. So we've got to be mindful of that, but also the depth to the foundation that we want to build, because it's divine feminine energy as well. So there is that essence of nurturing us through the rebuilding or creation of the foundation that we want, that's balanced, harmonious and fair. And Saturn is in the 8th house of power. So yes, we want to feel powerful and empowered in our life. And Saturn wants us to be in line with our spiritual truth. So we need to feel empowered with that. But to be honest, with what's going on with Neptune and the sextiles to Uranus and Pluto, if we're becoming more spiritually aware of where we need to change and transform, then we are getting more in line with our spiritual truth. And don't forget, Saturn's in Pisces as well, the house of the divine. So there's spiritual energy supporting us throughout all of this. But Saturn is not messing around, and also retrograde. So, you know, this is about what lessons have we really got to learn here? And this is to do with our power. So once we can establish that, we're going to naturally build the foundation that's fair, because we're understanding, no, I'm taking my power back, actually. I'm restoring the balance. I'm restoring the fairness here and the reciprocity that I deserve. And that is in trine, of course, across to Vesta in the 12th house, 0 degrees of Cancer there. Divine feminine energy, the sacred flame, though, that, you know, that's all about, you know, getting things started as well, because of that flame energy, that passion for something or someone. So yes, lessons we're learning perhaps about that. What does spark that flame within? And when we know that, we're not only learning those Saturn lessons because we're understanding what lights us up and what doesn't, but also how we can then build our foundation, because we know what it is that we're trying to strive towards, to do more of, and what we're trying to do less of. So our foundation becomes more stable as a result, and we're making Saturn happy as well at the same time. So there we are. That's just a bit of a, you know, overview of the transits when Mercury stations direct. We know we've got this new moon that's happening beforehand. So for us in the UK, 2:39 a.m. on the 15th of September. For some people in the world, it's going to be on the 14th, of course, because of time zones. But for UK, 2:39 a.m. So it's the same day as Mercury stationing direct. So, you know, powerful energy, as I was saying, about the introspection that we've been asked to do, that's really enabling us to have that truth talk with ourselves about what does need to be cleaned up in our lives. What do we need to change? Where do we need to restore order for our own sake? You know, this is for ourselves. Remember, Venus is showing for the UK in the 1st house of self. So we need to be recognizing it starts with us. And when we understand, where are we investing our time, our energy, our love, our attention, our money, where are we investing that? Is it making us happy, or is it making us unhappy? And that's going to give us a good pointer as to what needs to change. So, you know, but it impacts all the other bits that I mentioned, and that's where it can create a lot for us to deal with. But the energy is there to work for us. And certainly 2121, the degrees that the moon and the sun will be on the new moon in Virgo. Powerful angel number reduces to 3-3, manifestation all over that. And, you know, Mercury, last moment of being retrograde for us in the UK, that synchronicity, you know, of being, it'll be 9:22, of course, PM, but it's 21:22. So last moment is 21:21, 3-3. If you want to look at it, you know, another way you could look at it and say, well, yeah, 21 is 9. So 9, 21 is 3. So 9 and 3. 9 is about releasing. So what have we got to release here? Even if it's fears around change. What do we need to release in order to manifest new? 3, 9 and 3. So looking at it numerologically like that, thanks Mercury, then, you know, it just gives insight. And I'm drawn to that. I was intuitively drawn to that. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. There is so much power to this new moon in our manifestations. What reality do you want to experience for yourself? Because manifestation of it, if we're being truthful to ourselves and we believe we can manifest it, because we don't just throw around manifestations and then say, right, where is it? It comes in divine timing. But if we are clear and we are aligned with our spiritual truth, the universe is going to deliver it in some way. It may not be the way we expect it, And there's always been this kind of like caveat, certainly in some of my astrology reports where I've pulled cards, expect the unexpected comes out, or it's the unexpected, but it's basically expect the unexpected. So, you know, if we're setting the intentions and we're clear about what it is we want and what it is we don't want for our lives, and it aligns with our spiritual truth, of course the divine is going to honor that, but in the divine's time. Because trust me on this one, the divine has got a lot of work to do behind the scenes. And when you see it come to fruition and you actually see it in front of you, that is when you realize, wow, all that time, the divine was working for me in the background. We need to meet the universe halfway, though, with our intentions. So let's just pull a few cards. I've got the Gilded Tarot Royale, okay, for sovereignty. Gilded Tarot Royale. So let's see what the collective needs to know for their highest good in terms of Mercury stationing direct. Now, as I mentioned, there is a post-shadow phase, so the energy can still be a bit weird, but not as funky as when it's in a retrograde, and this one's been particularly heavy. So it should allow more flow, you know, but there's definitely emphasis on us telling the truth to ourselves. Virgo is earth energy as well. So this is about the reality of our environment, the reality of our reality. It's we want to ground into our reality what we want. And how do we know that? Well, when we know what lights us up. So if we know what lights us up and what makes us happy, and we want to manifest that for our reality, and it's alignment with our spiritual truth, then of course, perfect. But if we need to transform something or detach from something to do that, that's where it can become challenging. However, Magician and the Queen of Pentacles. Well, we've got masculine and feminine energy that's come out straight away, but this is about manifesting the reality. This is literally saying you're the magician of your own life here. You've got all the tools that you need to manifest. Surrender and belief is part of it. And Queen of Pentacles pops up to remind us about worth and values. So it's connected to that heavily as well. Because if we believe we're worthy of that kind of reality for ourselves, then we're going to, you know, draw it in. It's like a magnet. So, okay. Sorry, I digress. Let's see what cards we have. Okay. For the collective, please. What does the collective need to know? Take one more. Wow. Now, on the bottom, hidden energy, that's how I read it, 8 of Wands, that's movement, communication, okay? But underneath, the Chariot in reverse, that's movement, major arcana, but it's in reverse, so stagnancy. So there's something to do with communication, blocking movement forward, potentially if we've not had that truth talk with ourselves. But I've got the Queen of Cups in reverse, first of all. 7 of Swordsy in reverse. I like that it's in reverse, though, because I'm not a fan of that card. And the Tower in reverse. That's a big deal. So we need to lead with our heart, because the Queen of Cups leads with her heart. Okay, and we need to remember that we're sovereign in doing that, regardless of gender, leading with the heart. Removing ourselves from any situations that are deceptive, sneaky, toxic as well. And also, because this is another message of this card, anywhere where we have self-sabotaged. It's also a card about keeping things hidden. Okay. And then the Tower. So this is fear of the Tower. The Tower represents change, but major change. It's Pluto, Scorpio energy. So that's the deep transformation that's going on within our structures, because here the structure is crumbling. So there's fear around it, but it needs to crumble because it was never stable in the first place. but there is fear. It's almost like fear of detaching from something or allowing something to change so that that foundation can be rebuilt. And that could be where the self-sabotage is coming in potentially, but definitely a need to get into our heart space, because that is that Venus energy of understanding what actually makes me happy and where do I need to accept change into my life in that respect. What makes me happy? What do I want to do more of in that respect? Okay. And then we've got Queen of the Moon. Okay, what do we have from the Queen of the Moon, please? Mm-hmm. Wow, look at that. Ooh, it's a bit hot and steamy on the bottom. Extremes. So, you know, that's that sacral energy, 34, 3, 4, 7. But this is about it feeling like an intense period of time, transition, transformation. We've got boundaries in reverse. So that's about letting boundaries down because it's in reverse. You know, we need to have healthy boundaries, but if it's something that we really want to do or somebody that we want to really connect with because that does make us happy because it came out underneath the Queen of Cups, then of course we need to maybe let that boundary come down a bit, let that wall come down a bit to allow ourselves to feel that happiness. And maybe there's been fears around that. It all comes back to worth and values, doesn't it? Remember the Magician and Queen of Pentacles that we saw. And then we have release in reverse. So something needs to be released and it came out underneath Seven of Swordsy. So yes, releasing deceptive situations, deceptive people, but also releasing that desire to self-sabotage things. Because if there is something or someone that you want to connect with and that's in the heart space, but you're fearful about letting the boundary down, then that might sabotage something great. So there needs to be a release of that because that allows for the transformation. You see all the butterflies and it's coming from the heart chakra there. Okay, and then of course we had the Tower in reverse. So underneath that we've got wisdom and fruition in reverse. So yeah, you've got the wisdom here to apply as appropriate. This is about using the inner wisdom, again, via that intuition, to understand what needs to change. Because currently there is lack of fruition from a situation. So something needs to change. And that's why the Tower is here. Because whatever's not bringing that fruition needs to change. And this is saying that you've got the wisdom within you to understand what that is. And if it's as simple as releasing fears around opening the heart chakra, okay, then yes, you've got the wisdom within you in order to release those fears or be aware of them, certainly. Because at the moment, whilst you're guarded, there's no fruition in that. So if you're not letting your heart be open to receive love, then of course you're not going to receive the fruition from love that perhaps somebody wants to give, or from a situation that wants to give you that emotional fulfillment. And that's why the change is needed. Interesting. Lightseer's Tarot, I'm just drawn to getting one additional card from this deck. Let's see. Just been kind of given one, but I'm going to take another one. Got the Wheel in reverse. So a bit of stagnancy in a situation. There we go. Right. Okay. So yeah, the Wheel in reverse. So there's a bit of stagnancy or perhaps hesitancy. And then we've got the Nine of Pentacles. This is about success. It's one pentacle away from the Ten of Pentacles, which is the quintessential dream of emotional, spiritual, and material fulfillment with loyalty and love and abundance. So this is, again, the wisdom, because we have the bird there. There is that divine feminine essence that I'm drawn to because of the white, that purity. But also this is about being successful in an independent way. Okay, so being successful and actually, you know, allowing yourself to receive, but to create as well. And stability can come from that. This is Pentacles energy, but also I'm drawn to the cycles. So we're in charge of our cycles. And I say that because of the wheel coming out in reverse. The wheel wants to turn in your favor, and you're in the driving seat of that in terms of what you invest in, that Pentacles energy. So it goes back to the Venus stuff, doesn't it? Because in the upright, what I'm drawn to on this card, and I love this deck, this is like the Jupiter glyph that I see. And notice how she's standing not just on one wheel, but on a stack of them. And she's not even scared about falling off. She's poised, she's balanced, she's got the feminine and the masculine. So she's balanced within. She's got dice here. So this is about taking chances, taking risks, okay, and not being afraid of that. And notice she's in white as well. So again, it's that divinity within to understand the wisdom that's there about cycles that need to close out, cycles that need to change, cycles that you want to invest in, people you want to invest in, things you want to invest in, having the wisdom to do that. Because underneath at the moment, you might feel like there's lack of emotional fulfillment currently, but this is in the upright. So the power is in your hand to bring in and create the success you want in a situation. Okay. Also point out it's 9. So again, releasing what you need to in that respect. There we go. So I feel those are the messages for you, and certainly, you know, with regards to Mercury station in direct, because we would have had the new moon. So sending you all the best for your new moon intention settings and manifestations, of course. And I have already done an astrology overview for that. So I'll pop the link below and check it out if it resonates, because I talk specifically about the new moon happening. We know that Mercury direct is less than 19 hours after. So this is in advance, of course, for that. But we've certainly got the opportunity to have that truth talk with ourselves. We've still got some time for that truth talk, so that when Mercury is direct, we can then understand, right, where do I need to express that? Do I need to express more to myself? Do I need to express to others what it is that needs to change? How might it apply for, you know, your situation, if it resonates at all, of course. But there's certainly a lot of deep transformation energy going on at the moment. We're in the driver's seat. We've got that with the Virgo energy. We're in control of what we need to clean up, but we need to have the truth talk with ourselves to understand what it is and why we need to clean it up as well. Then we're making Saturn happy with the lessons as well. So sending you all the best. Take care, and I'll see you again soon.